I Love Learning podcast today. If you don't know this person that's sitting next to me right now, well, not literally sitting next to me, but sort of, this is Dr. Curtis Bonk. And oh my gosh, I don't even know how many decades we've known each other, but Dr. Curtis Bonk, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience today? Tell them maybe a fun fact and what you're passionate about.
In our third decade of knowing each other,
Yeah.
because I met Gina in April 2002, around
Hmm.
the 15th of April. It's tax
It
time.
was tax time for
She was
sure.
working for the global campus at the University of Illinois in Champaign with a
Mhm.
bunch of my friends at the time.
That is true.
That
That
is
is true.
true. So
Long
it's
time, isn't it?
21 years.
Oh my gosh. If you all don't know Dr. Curtis Bonk, he is one of the most creative, entrepreneurial, and experts in learning across the world, and has actually been giving free learning for over as long as I've known him. So 3 decades. So tell us what you're passionate about. I mean, you have so many passions. You just told me he ran from what, San Francisco to Boston and back. So what else? What are you passionate about?
Not Forrest Gump, but I passed him a few months ago. I've
Yeah.
run 1,294 days in a row, but not
Who's
that far,
keeping
not
track?
that fast, just
No.
consistent. And
Mm-hmm.
I've also been consistent in my interest in human learning. And
Ah.
so, my life was changed from correspondence courses,
Wow.
television courses back in the
Whoa. Don't
day.
don't date you. Don't date you. You're dating yourself
Yeah,
now.
way back, way back, in the Wayback Machine, you
Oh
know.
no.
Yeah, and so at the University of Wisconsin, I double majored in human learning, human development. Really, I got ready for grad school, and I said, "Wow, people really study learning, and they write
Hmm.
books on it. You
Oh.
can take classes on it." I mean, I was an accountant and a board CPA, and so I escaped the cube farms of Milwaukee by taking correspondence and TV and face-to-face night classes and other things. So when I got to Madison,
Hmm.
my instructor, who I was taking correspondence courses with, called me into his office, said, "How'd you like to help me develop a television show, Teachers
Whoa.
Tackle Thinking, Critical Thinking in the Classroom," which became nationally syndicated? And I said, "Sure."
Mm-hmm.
And one thing led to another. His name is Dr. Bob Clausen, and his wife, Donna Ray Clausen, worked on that too. And then lo and behold, when I graduated at Wisconsin, something called the internet was
What
designed,
what
or,
was it? The internet.
the internet, well,
Yeah.
not the internet, the web, actually, I should
Right.
say.
MapQuest.
Yeah, the internet existed. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was doing email and other kinds of things, right? So I started studying collaborative technologies for learning,
Mm-hmm.
and did national surveys related to collaborative technologies. And what we had back in the day when I did that back in
Mm-hmm.
1990, which still exists. I mean, a lot of the stuff we see today, we get excited about Google Documents and whatever else you're using, they existed for tools like that have existed for a while to help
Mm-hmm.
people learn. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's collaborative technologies, whether it's mobile technologies, whether it's immersive technologies, we
Mm.
are changing the landscape of learning in many ways, many shapes, many stripes to the
Mhm.
types of learning that students have access to today. Today, we talk about open and online and blended and massive and other forms of learning, gamification of learning, hands-on learning,
Gosh, it's
international global
overwhelming.
collaboration. It's just, if one of these things happen, Gina,
Mhm. Yeah.
if just online, if just we had this web thing that happened, in
Mhm.
1991. If just
Mhm.
that, it'd be a revolution. But to see, we've got at least 30 different ways that learning has changed since I got in the game here, you
Yeah.
know. And that's what we're doing something today, podcasts, right?
Sure.
A vodcast or
Right.
a
This is a
webcast,
podcast. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Exactly. So tell us, so it's really interesting because you're really obviously passionate about learning. What do you think really inspired you to want to learn? Like why were you interested in this topic, and what inspires you to learn today?
my first grade teacher.
No, come on.
Yeah. She said,
Oh,
to my second grade teacher, "That Bonk kid, he can't read too well and write too well. He's no
yeah.
good. You got to watch. You put him with the
Yeah.
crows. Instead.
Right.
And so at night, every night after second grade, class ended, I stopped at
Oh.
the nearby library and read and picked out a different book to read, and I read 130 books to prove my first grade teacher wrong. and I got
Yes.
interested in learning.
Got
And
it.
I was always, at my neighbor's house using we didn't have encyclopedias, using their encyclopedias
Mhm.
and resources. And so I was, I was always interested in ancient history and stuff. So last week I was in Egypt in the pyramids, and
Of
I've been
course
waiting to
you
go
were.
since I was seven
Right.
years old, reading
Uh-huh.
about that. So, I've always been interested in how different types of resources that
Mhm.
wrap around us. And again, old library resources. And back in those days, as a 7-year-old kid could go to the library, and her mother and father wouldn't care. It's a mile or
Right.
two from my house, a
Mhm.
mile about, and I could walk home on my own. No one, today that doesn't happen. It's a
Right.
different kind of environment.
Mhm.
And so I think seeing how it changed my life, seeing how learning
Mhm.
resources have changed my life,
Wow.
I've been
Mhm.
looking to find ways to help people um, get access to educational resources, whether they're my free books online, free Silver Line for
I
Learning,
love
my
that
podcast show,
story. I
you
never
know.
knew that. 3 decades of knowing you, and I never knew that. See, somebody back in your life told you you couldn't do something, and you overcame that hurdle. So, I guess
Someone told me I
yeah.
couldn't run the Chicago Marathon. I was working with them, and that night,
Yeah.
on no sleep, I ran 20 miles to prove them wrong,
What?
to get ready for the Chicago Marathon. So I think,
Wow. Yeah. When
a lot
somebody
of,
says that, yeah,
yeah,
it gives
yeah,
you inspiration.
a challenge, right?
Right. So let me show everybody this. So I got this most awesome calendar last year. This was a calendar that Dr. Bonk authored, produced, created, thought of. And every day there is a positive message and I wrote this article about overcoming the mind and having a mind of a champion. So because you did this, I have this question about thinking about maybe a time. This is probably something why did you create this, I guess, first of all? And
Uh,
yeah, I'm interested in that. And one of my questions I always ask about is how you help people overcome the impossible, or maybe how you've overcome the impossible in your life. And I think this has really been foundational, maybe helping a lot of people overcome negative thoughts. So kind of talk, why did you do this, and what does this mean?
yeah. So a friend from grad school, I must say, she got me to keep working on that project. I was posting during COVID. So during COVID,
Uh-huh.
the beginning, my colleagues contacted me and said, let's start a podcast show. You can help
Mhm.
teachers out for 2, 3 months. COVID would be
Mhm.
over. And I said, oh, okay, it's called Silver Lining for Learning. We're on episode 169 now, or 170.
Wow.
So 3.5 years later, we're still going.
Uh-huh.
But that day, I went running before the first show. I was in Portland visiting my son. I went running, and the next day I went running up Mount Tabor in Portland, Little
Mhm.
Mountain. And the next day I had to fly home, and every airline was closing flights and
Right.
canceling
I was
flights and
coming back
whatnot.
from a keynote. Did you know that? I was actually coming back from the keynote at IU that day that they closed. The
Wow.
same where you were somewhere else.
Where I
Yeah.
was trying to come
Yeah.
back. So I ended up getting back to Bloomington early,
Mhm.
and I said, "Well, I could go running." Governor Holcomb was going to put a quarantine on for a week or 2 weeks. I go running for another 2 weeks. Well, the quarantine lasted and lasted, and I kept running. And so
Uh-huh.
I was posting quotes to Facebook pretty much from the start on leadership, learning, and life. And in day 50, I was getting tired of doing that, to be honest. Or I was getting,
Yeah.
mentally challenged to come up with new quotes. And my colleague from grad school, her name is Veronica Acosta, who is a professor
Uh-huh.
at Cal State Long Beach. She
Mhm.
says, "You got to keep this is good. You got to keep going. You got to don't stop." And so,
Right.
I just kept. I said, Veronica, okay, I'll do this for you. And so I kept posting little. And by the time 500 days were up, and people thought I was running for a year, and I was not planning to stop after 1 year because I've done 1 year before. I kept
Right.
going, and 500 days, I had 2,000 quotes.
Wow.
34,000 pictures of
Of your
Southern
dog.
Indiana, of my dog. I have two calendars, one just Southern Indiana
Yeah.
and one of my dog in Southern Indiana. So
Uh-huh.
currently I'm working on a new one.
Oh.
I'm about done on
Mhm.
Bloomington and IU, Indiana U.
Oh,
And so that's the new one with new quotes. I've spent
got it.
much of the summer coming up with new quotes on leadership, learning, and life. So I thought, part of the reason to do something like that is
Mhm.
just something that can contribute. It's just out of the ordinary. It's not a typical academic paper or
Yeah.
book or,
Are you trying to change people's mindsets? Is that like, are you trying to what's the core purpose of it?
Inspiration,
Oh, I love that.
you
Yes.
know, it's just to
Yeah.
get, so I was, every day, I
Uh-huh.
would have a Dalai Lama quote
Yes.
in my
Oh.
pocket. And
Mhm.
so for years, I've been, reading Dalai Lama quotes, and,
Mhm. Let me
there's this
see.
Dalai
Oh,
Lama. So this
got
is an
it.
old one. I could read this, a long
Look,
one, but
here's my quote for today. Everyone, this is my quote. Happiness is not a destination. It is a method of life. So yeah, we're connected, Dr. Bonk. We
I
are.
I think I've got that too. I've got
Yeah,
that
you
somewhere
got
in
it
here
too.
too.
Oh, let's see. No, come on. You do not. This was not planned. Well, I
I,
did send you a calendar, right?
it's in
So
my pocket, and I
it's
got
in your
yesterday's as
pocket.
well.
Ah, you
So
are so great.
so
Dr. Monk is so great. So let me ask you this. So one of the reasons I do this personally is because I want to inspire people. I want to engage people. So if what in your mind, if someone's lost their hope to learn and their desire, what would you tell them?
Well, there are a number of avenues that one can get restarted, right?
Hmm.
I would say this is an age of Videopedia. We've come out of the age of Wikipedia, and so at our fingertips is an enormous volume of
uh,
the educational possibilities throughout the world, whether it's TikTok short videos,
hmm.
clips, or we go to specific YouTube channels or podcast shows or
Hmm.
whatever. You have the opportunities to tap into so many different resources that you're self-selecting. You're making the decision. No one's dictating to you to jump in here and to utilize and be assessed on it. You're not. A lot of the people we interview tell me we love learning from MIT OpenCourseWare until
Hmm.
someone wants to assess my learning.
Got it.
Till they start assessing me, I want out. I've had
Hmm.
18 years of my life spent in the assessment drills that have happened. I want to enjoy learning. So I'd
Hmm.
say to those people, find a couple of resources that are enhancements to your personal
Hmm.
interests and
Hmm.
hobbies and passions, and start with that, and share those if you
Hmm.
want with colleagues
Hmm.
or friends, and maybe share new resources that come up, so then you can maybe build a little mini personal learning community.
Oh,
And
that's awesome. That's a
you know
great idea. So building your own library.
bring your own library of resources, and the people are wrapped around it to discuss it, to
Hmm.
share about it and contribute to it.
Oh.
Communities don't happen overnight from just
Hmm.
grabbing from. Communities form from giving to as well as getting, right? You have to
Hmm.
have identity within communities. You have to have a shared
Hmm.
space within communities. You have to have membership, a common history. And so
Hmm.
you build these common histories over time from the interesting podcasts like today that you
Hmm.
shared with someone. They counter with it with one of their own. It grows over time,
Got
right?
it. I got it. So, in terms of authenticity, then, so I studied this as part of my doctoral research. It's something I'm really passionate about when we work with clients, is really making content authentic. So, in your words, being a learning expert, if I were to have you and I was observing your research, like what would you say how would you define authentic learning? What does that mean to you?
What's interesting is I'm grading my students' papers now, and a couple of them are defining authentic learning, and
Oh,
one of them didn't go far enough, stopped
okay.
short, and I'm pushing him or her to build on what they
Don't give
started.
them, if there's a right answer here, we
Yeah,
might not want to share it then. I don't know.
yeah. My friend Jen Harrington had a website called Authentic Learning, and
Yes.
did a book with Tom Reeves and Ron Oliver in Australia and the U.S. on
Mhm,
authentic learning. That's available for folks. You can look this up.
mhm,
And they have a book really to authentic online learning as well.
mhm,
So authentic learning gets people situated in real world types of context, high fidelity types of learning
mhm,
that have significant aspects to them that relate to real life that get embedded in situations, in cases, in scenarios
Mhm.
that exemplify the type of context that one will eventually take part in, right?
Right. Here's a great example, right? So, driver industry, if you give them something generic and they have to go change a cargo and it's a huge tanker, if they saw something generic, it's not going to help them, right?
Right.
Right,
So yeah, I was in
exactly.
the UAE and they were trying to,
Mhm.
they were helping people learn how to drive there because the number one cause of death on highways hitting a donkey and a
Oh,
camel.
what?
In Cairo last Thursday, my driver hit a donkey and
What?
a person on a donkey. The guy
Wait,
got back
you
up.
were on the car? You were
It
in the
was in the
car?
car. I
You
was
can't
nervous
make
as
this
all
up.
heck. You know, I'm not making this up. The guy in the donkey cut in front of the car, and the guy
Wow.
slowed down in time, just bumped hard. The donkey went down, and
Mhm.
they got up. I'm so thankful. But there's a need for drivers training. Anybody who's watching this podcast show, people in the Middle East will readily hire you
Oh,
to train
wow. It's a
people
whole
how to
nother
drive
market.
there because it's not
Mhm.
defensive driving. It's not known. There are
Mhm.
no actually in the highways. There's no lane. There's no
Wow.
divider, no yellow line or white lines anywhere. There's people driving on 2 lanes all the time. You know,
Wow.
it is crazy.
That is crazy.
And
Well, I think in terms of this podcast, this has been outstanding today. So, Dr. Bonk, leave us with some final thoughts on learning, a passion, anything you want to share with anyone that watches this show today. How are you going to send us off?
anyone can learn anything from anyone else at any time. That is what has transpired over the decades that I've been in this game, is that the reach, me to you or to other people around the world, anything that you're learning can be put on display, shared, contributed, rethought, remixed, embedded in one's classes in the blink of an eye. You know,
Mhm.
your blink of an eye, your syllabi can change, your course topics can change. 2 days ago, we had students from Costa Rica join my class,
Aw.
and just to practice their English skills. 30 of them bumped into my learning environments class. My students explained about learning environments. That types of thing can happen when explorers are studying penguins in Adelie penguins in Antarctica, who've been on my podcast show. They can share
Yeah.
with hundreds of schools around the world their discoveries, their curriculum, their ideas about science education. Young kids in the Philippines can be asking questions of these Antarctic researchers or people at NASA or anywhere around in the world. This is a unique time to tap into humanity, to enhance and extend what you can do in any learning setting. But ultimately, it's not just enhancing and extending, it's transforming the learning. That's the goal. And if we build up enough instances where you have authentic um, cases, scenarios brought into your classes and the peoples of different regions, if you build that up over time, it becomes transformative. It's not
Wow.
transformative overnight, but if you immerse yourself in these free, open online contents that are available to anyone and think about them in an innovative pedagogical way to
Mhm.
utilize these in engaging, interactive, and collaborative formats, you will in turn transform what was done previously into this new age of learning, whether we call it education 3.0, education 4.0, where it's the innovation age. We are in the learning century
Woo!
with
Let's
you at that
do
point.
it.
It's no
Yes.
longer the industrial age, no longer the information age, no longer just the global age. It is the learning age. You've got your mobile attached to you at all time for learning. I'm sitting here looking at my laptop. I mean, there are so many ways we all are learning every day, at every minute of the day. That's why I did the calendar, to make people
Yes.
aware of the learning that's happening all around, the leadership towards that learning, and the fact that it's
Mhm.
embedded in our lives. Leadership, learning, and life is the theme of that for a reason, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
All that. So I
Mhm.
call it Education 2020. I can go through my Education 2020 model, but many people will call it Education 3.0, 4.0, and that's where we're moving towards, because it's not about living your life till you retire somewhere. It's about living your life till you can continue to learn somewhere. All
Oh,
three.
I'm gonna quote that. That's gonna be on my social media. That's
Ooh.
that's that's it. I mean, that's point on. And I honestly, I appreciate you inspiring not only me. You are a big inspiration of my learning. You inspire people all around the globe, all around the world. If somebody wants to learn about your website and where they can get more information, can you provide us some of that so they can look you up and connect?
Gina, didn't you say if I
What?
said free, free, free three
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
I would, people would like this show. So I have three free books on my homepage at kurtbonk.com. One book with 100 activities for teaching online called Tech
Mm,
Variety or Adding Tech Variety. There's a new version of that book that came out
wow.
last year called Motivating and Supporting Online Learners that has a
Mhm.
free class with it. So there's a free
Oh,
course on how to motivate online, just linked off my homepage. The Commonwealth of Learning sponsored that in Vancouver. The first book I wrote, I promised the people of the Philippines my next book would be free because my publisher, Josie Bass, was
oh,
ripping people off.
don't
Yeah,
say that. Yes.
was price gouging people. I might go back to that publisher actually, so I probably shouldn't
Oh,
say.
you shouldn't
But
say it.
I told the people of Philippines when I keynoted that in 2012, I said my next book will be
Mhm.
free. And so in
Mhm.
2014, Adding Tech Variety came out. It's been downloaded 250,000 times. Then
Yes.
then the counter broke. The third book actually is on research in online environments. There's
Oh,
really a special issue we did for the Online Learning Journal. It's a systemic review of the research. So you want to know the research, go to my homepage. You want
the
to know how
R2D2
applications.
model. The
So
R2D2 model's up there too.
yeah, but that's not free, unfortunately. But I'll try.
Oh,
If,
oh,
if you write to me, I'll send you whatever you want. So that's the
right.
main key. So there's free stuff up there. Take advantage of it. It's not just
Yes.
everyone can contribute to this gigantic learning resource we call the giant web of learning, right? This is a
Awesome.
web of learning.
It is a web, and thank you for being a major part of that web and sharing all the resources you do. Thanks for joining us today. If anyone wants to reach out to Dr. Bonk, you know where to find him. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Free, free, free.
Free. Cheers.